Hey, I'm standing in front of this lovely house in Leaside, beautiful neighborhood, and you might be thinking, that looks like a house I'd like to live in. But this is not the house you're looking for. Why not? Come along and let's find out. I recently saw a video by Jeff Marshall in which he went to a fake house in New York City that's part of the subway system. And that prompted a couple of funny tweets, show them over there, from another YouTuber named Tim Traveler. And that made me think, well, Toronto has some fake houses too. And I'm standing in front of one of them right now. Now, it looks like an ordinary house in an ordinary neighborhood, but wait, what's that on the door?
Zoom in. Enhance. Ah, this isn't a house, it's an electrical substation. In the decades after World War II, a lot of neighborhoods of primarily single-family houses were built in Toronto. Houses need electricity, and that needs substations. But nobody wants to live next door to an ugly industrial-looking collection of transformers and wires. So the local electrical utility, Toronto Hydro, built fake houses to disguise them. There's a chain across the driveway to try to keep people from using this as free parking, and to make sure that when workers come to do maintenance on the electrical equipment or the property, the space will be available for them to park their trucks. Now let's head over to a different neighborhood. Our next fake house is just off the Danforth, and as you can see, it's a different design. Toronto Hydro could have just designed one fake house and cloned it everywhere across the city, but instead they came up with lots of different designs to try to fit into the various neighborhoods. Very neighborly, really. And when you think about it, these fake houses are probably pretty good neighbors. You never have to worry about this house having a loud party at 3 a.m., or being turned into an Airbnb, or a crack house, or a meth lab. Now off we go to another neighborhood where we'll see a side of these fake houses we haven't seen yet.
I'm standing in front of the public library in Victoria Village. It's a pretty typical post-war neighborhood. Quiet, tree-lined streets, single-family houses, and a Toronto Hydro fake house. Let's go around back and have a look. And here's the back of the house. As you can see, the back wall of the house is actually only part way back. The side walls extend farther back, and there's an empty bay in the back where there used to be equipment. You can see right there the concrete pad that it was on. Google Earth shows that until a couple of years ago there was equipment in here. It's gone now. Over the last couple of decades, Toronto Hydro hasn't been building these, and in fact they've been tearing some of them down because due to advances in technology, they don't need as many of them anymore. Whether they're going to get rid of this one or whether all the equipment they need is inside the house, they would know. I don't know. But what I do know is empty space, kind of boring. So let's go take a tour in another part of the city. Welcome to Scarborough. I mentioned earlier that Toronto Hydro started building fake houses after the war. A consequence of that is that they're not evenly distributed throughout the city. The older neighborhoods, many of which are in the central part, don't have fake houses. The fake houses are concentrated out in the suburban areas, and there may be no better illustration of that than right here on Brimley Road. This is a north-south arterial road. I'm a little bit north of St. Clair Avenue, and here's a fake house. Let's head on north up the street and look for some more. Welcome to Nob Hill Park. We're on Brimley Road, that behind me there, a little bit north of Eglinton. And if you've been paying attention, and I hope you have because there's a test later, then this should look familiar to you. But there's electrical equipment in there, unlike the one we saw earlier. So that's what the other one would have looked like. And other than that, this is pretty much a typical fake house for Toronto Hydro. So let's continue on north and see what else we can find. Well, here we are a little bit north, farther up on Brimley Road. That's Lawrence Avenue just behind me. And what to my wondering eyes should appear? But a third fake house. Let's keep going north, see what else we can find. And here we are just south of Ellesmere. And right behind me is fake house number 4. I'm going to put an asterisk on this one. Asterisk. Thank you. Because although the front of the house and its driveway are on Brimley, Its official street address is actually just around the corner on that little side street, but it's on Brimley. All right, let's keep going. And now we are a little bit south of Shepherd. That's Brimley Road behind me at the end of the footpath. And here is fake house number 5, which, like some of the others we've seen, does still have transformers in the back. All right, enough of the fake houses. Now I want to show you some electrical substations that are also disguised in plain sight as buildings, but as buildings other than houses. So let's go.
We are on the west side of the downtown core, and this is Duncan Substation, built in 1910. Back then, this area would have been largely industrial buildings such as factories and warehouses, so this building would have looked right at home. And next we're going to head back to the Danforth for another older substation built in 1926. It's a rather handsome building. Back then they put some effort into the architecture even for utilitarian industrial buildings. Probably the best example of that in Toronto is the R.C. Harris Water Treatment Plant, a building with magnificent Art Deco design both inside and out, as you can see in these photos. It still supplies a significant portion of Toronto's drinking water to this day. But that's water, and we're talking about electricity. So let's move on and look at a really unique looking building.
Now, everybody knows we have a castle in Toronto called Castle Loma, but we also have this, Glengrove Sub-station, built in 1930. And it looks like a castle.
I don't know of any direct links between this building and Sir Henry Pellet, who built Castle Loma, but there are links between him and our electrical system. Sir Henry owned the Toronto Electric Light Company, an electrical utility in the late 1800s. That company, or a descendant of it, built the Toronto Power Generating Station, seen in this photo, one of the early hydroelectric generating plants at Niagara Falls. The provincial government ended up owning that after taking public control of electrical generation in Ontario. Also, in some parts of Canada, including Ontario, the word hydro is used to refer to electrical utilities because hydroelectric generation was a major part of our electrical supply. These days, hydropower only accounts for roughly a quarter of Ontario's electricity, with nuclear providing over twice as much, but the name stuck. Many of our electrical utility companies still have the word hydro in their names, and we call our electrical bills hydro bills. Now, just before we head off to look at one more building, check out those doors. They're a nice touch, don't you think? We are in Midtown, just a block west of the intersection, often called Yonge and Eligible. The building on the corner was built as an electrical substation in 1920. As you can see from the signs all over it, this site is meeting a very common fate in Toronto. It's being turned into condos. This building has a heritage designation, so it's going to be sort of preserved in the usual Toronto way. The facade is being incorporated into the new building. Finally, we're going to head several blocks east along Eglinton to wrap things up.
And that brings us to our last stop. This space behind me used to have a fake house. It was torn down several years ago, and the space is going to be added onto this apartment building here. And the neighbor over here is an apartment building. And when this house was first built, this was actually a residential neighborhood of single-family houses, so it fit in. But all that's left now is an empty field.